As a competitive-minded Marvel Snap content creator, I do not usually make deck decisions based on sentimental issues. I have broken that rule. I am playing this deck because of a variant, and it is also winning a ton of games. This is the variant that has stolen my heart. It's available on the web shop Whale Track, and it is quite expensive, so I'm not recommending any of you do this. But once I saw it, had to have it. I planned out purchases so that I would be able to get the points required in order to acquire this incredible variant. So let's take a look at the deck built around everyone's favorite warrior queen. I don't think this list should come as much of a surprise to anyone. Thena is and has been only really viable in a very specific list for a while now. That is, of course, the anti-Venom, Agent Venom, one day I'll get that correct, list of cards that looks a lot like this. In fact, I would say that the only actual change I made is removing US Agent and getting Sam Wilson in here. Other than that, this is the stock Thena list, which sort of circles in and out of relevancy, but I personally think that when people stop playing this, it's not necessarily because it's a bad choice, but because they are bored with it. I think it has been consistently just a good thing to be doing. This is a very small ball, low to the ground type of deck that is very near to my heart. I typically enjoy playing Kitty Pryde decks more than basically any other type of deck in the entire game, and this is sort of the apex of Kitty Pryde decks. It's a deck that turns downsides into upsides, and it's a deck that plays a lot of close games. The real flex slots in the deck, other than the Sam Wilson US Agent, which I have no quarrel with anyone who wants to just cut Sam Wilson and run literally whatever in that spot as long as it works with Bast and AV, are the 2/3s at the top of the curve, Juggernaut and Cosmo. Those are the cards that you're going to be messing with to turn this deck into a metagame-tuned weapon. I think the rest of it is fairly locked in. Sage, of course, and Cassandra Nova are excellent AV Bast cards. Havoc also very, very good at that. But the real flex spots are the 3s that have 3 power, the 2 that has 3 power. Those are where you can really sort of customize this. I am playing a Juggernaut because I do think that we might not have enough points to win everything, and because Juggernaut can also be a sort of second Cosmo against types of interaction that we can be vulnerable to. This is a card that allows us to win a lane on its own sometimes by himself, but also to use him as protection against things that might blow us out. It's also not very bad at all for contesting Iron Patriots. Cosmo might be the least played card in the entire deck, but when he is good, he is the only thing that will actually win you some matchups. Being able to sort of pigeonhole discard into a Juggernaut Cosmo final turn if you have priority to make sure that their MODOK doesn't go off, that is the kind of thing that you can play for. This is a deck that has a good combination of points, interaction, and crucially, surprise. There is a lot of variance in what our final turns can look like. Anything from a gigantic Sage with a Cosmo in another lane, to a Juggernaut and a Sage, to a Juggernaut and a Cosmo, to a wide variety of other cards as well. This is a deck that weaponizes the confusion it can create and the powerful 3-drops that it has access to on the final turn of the game. I recently saw a hot take on my hot takes list that the Hood is the best 1-drop in the game, and I find it hard to argue because in this deck, you are pretty short on ways to negate his downside if you play him early. Like, this is a card that you can Bast, maybe. This is a card that you can use Agent Venom on. But on the whole, like, you're not playing any bounce cards. You're not playing anything that blows him up. You are very often just, like, gonna play him and be like, that's -3. And you can afford to do that because of how strong your scalers are. But this is also like a deck that is sort of at the bottom in terms of ways to make the Hood great. You're never doubling up on him and getting like doubles out of him. Your best option to get rid of him a lot of the time is like Nico Destroy or Nico turn into a demon. That kind of stuff is usually going to be better. But also, of course, if you do get him 2/3 power, this is suddenly like a 2/9, and that's just really good rate. And I think more important than that, when you don't have Kitty Pryde, a 1-drop that gives you another 1-drop. So you can play a Thena and a 1-drop on turn 3, and then a 3 and a 1-drop on turn 4 is actually pretty valuable for you, because then you can go a 3 and a 2 on 5, and then you can go a 3 and a 3 on 6, or if that 2 was Havoc, a 3 and another 2, and you're constantly getting your Thena procs without actually needing to rely on Kitty Pryde. Bast is a card I am typically fairly patient with. There are not a lot of good reasons to run this out there before turn 2, unless you have an AV in hand. That can be a good reason, but even then, sometimes it's not actually worth doing. So you really have to look at like what you're actually getting out of this card, because this card can be as good as like a 1/7 or a 1/10 if you have the right situation for it. But it's also the kind of card that you can greed, and it's like a 1/4, which is fine, but you really need to extract as much value as you can out of this card in a lot of different spots. And I do think that a mistake I see people making is playing this card too early, or at least not thinking about, is it better to hold this? Kitty Pryde is your easiest way to make sure that you are gaining power on Thena. That is the main thing that this card is here for, but she's also just generally quite solid here. You're not doing a ton with like Angela Bishop, and it is possible that Bishop might be worth looking at in a deck like this after his buff, although this is a deck that doesn't typically care too much about that. What this is doing here is making sure your Thena's proc, making sure you have something that is cheap that you can mix into your curve, and generally just being one of the best cards to see in your opening hand in terms of the way this deck actually wants games to play out. Nico Minoru is fine. I think very often in this list, you're going to want to use her for copy or draw to. Those are typically going to be the best things to do. Copying Thena, for example, is just really, really strong. You go like turn 3 Thena or Nico Thena, copy the Thena, she gets 3, then you start playing more Thena stuff, and you get basically put yourself in a situation where you have 2 Thenas. One of them is going to be 12 by the end of the game, one of them is going to be 9 by the end of the game. That's a pretty good outcome from a Nico. Draw 2 on the Hood is another very powerful play you can make. Copying a Cassandra Nova can be very powerful as well, especially if it's been, basted or something and you set it up that way. I do think that a lot of her other modes are pretty mediocre, but they're not bad or anything like that. You have the ability to turn off problematic locations some of the time. It's rare, but it can matter, and it does give you outs in games that would otherwise not exist. Then you have the double, which is a little bit better in this deck than it is otherwise, because she's very often able to get to 3, and that doubles up to 6. And of course, the Forge effect, which is not always particularly relevant, but it's very hard for like a 1/4 or 1/5 if she's been basted or anti-agent venomed to be all that bad. Havoc is almost always a card that you're playing on turn 5 alongside maybe a 3 or something like that. This is a card that is very explicitly in this deck to be like a 2/11 after you bast it or AV it. You're really only looking for a couple procs out of it. The earlier you play it, the more risky that is. You can do it sometimes when the locations allow you to, like if they're giving you extra energy or something. But very often, Havoc is going to be showing up pretty much only on 5, and usually, mostly, when you bast him or AV him. This makes him an effective 2/11 that cannot get Shang-Chi'd because he doesn't actually have that power until after the turn 6 is over. The girl we're all here for, Thena, Gaze Upon Her Glory, is the linchpin of this deck in terms of being the cheapest and probably strongest scaler in it. You are not going to want to play this card on turn 2 in the vast majority of cases. This is a card that you play on 3 with a 1-drop, because there's actually not a huge difference between your output when you play it on 2 and then play other stuff, and just playing it on 3 with a 1-drop typically ends up in the right spot because of how many of your cards are just so medium. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it is what I would default to unless you had a compelling reason to do something other than that. This is, of course, a card that, much like Havoc, is going to be able to scale to a level that is normally vulnerable to Shang-Chi, but your job is to make sure that doesn't happen. don't let this card be vulnerable to Shang-Chi. If you've basted it, maybe you're going to want to play 3 cards on that turn 5 so that it doesn't actually get up beyond 9 too early. Unless you are going to take priority and you're very confident that a Cosmo or Juggernaut is going to go in her lane. Here you can see my unrivaled genius. I have taken out US Agent and replaced him with Sam Wilson. Much like the US government, I have opted for the better version of Captain America. And I think that this choice is sort of indicative mostly of Sam Wilson being really strong and US Agent kind of not being. I'm willing to experiment with other stuff here. Like maybe we actually are an Angela deck. I kind of doubt it. The reason I opted for Sam is twofold. Obviously, Sam on 2, better than anything else you can do on 2 outside of an AV. So this is just a very good thing to do on turn 2. And then you have your turn 3 like Thena 1 drop, right? That's just really strong. The other thing, though, is you kind of like having just the extra body on the board because you are a Sage deck. There's not a lot of things with 1 power being played right now outside of Thanos stones, so that is very often an extra Sage proc if you end up saging that lane. AV is a very powerful card in this deck. I'm not sure any individual card is a snap condition the way stuff like Pixie or Mr. Negative can be. But if there is one, this is close to it. I would say that our output is still, like, it's similar to our normal output after an AV. This is not a deck that has, like, anything of the magnitude of a Pixie or a Mr. Negative. It's just a deck that gets a lot better when you play this card. And so you're able to compete with higher numbers after you've played this guy. That's not to say that, like, you're gonna guaranteed win against everything, though. You're just able to deal with things that get a bit larger than what you're normally able to deal with because of the way this guy can play for, like, effectively, like, 11 to 14 power, depending on how many of the cards that get his buff you play and on what those cards are. Cassandra Nova is actually mostly here because she's a 3/0 and thus is an excellent target for AV and Bast. The way in which deck building is done in this deck is that there are a lot of cards that are balanced around the fact that they have 0 power, and your job is to take all the ones that are cheap and say they don't have 0 power anymore. And that's really what's happening here. This card after a Bast or AV on turn 3 is going to be about 9 power from your 3-drop, plus the effect that it has on your opponent's deck. That's pretty damn good. You are very happy to be able to be a deck that can just play cards that are very solid, like this card, in those situations. This is also a card that is additionally very good in a couple of specific matchups. It's not as good against Thanos as you might think, because a lot of their deck is just going to be drawing cards, but sometimes it is. It is an absolutely busted card against Arishem. This is a card that makes your matchup against Arishem nearly a joke. Between this and Juggernaut, it's just very difficult for you to be put in situations where it's bad. A lot of the time, I typically want to be saving casts until later in the game, but between Juggernaut and Cosmo and Sage, I very often am unable to against an Arishem deck. But the thing is, casts against Arishem and then Cosmoing that lane is probably just going to win you the lane anyway. Now, I know I said I was doing this for one variant, but it's actually also for this one. I bought this Sage, and I haven't had a ton of chance to use it, and we've talked about the way in which you build around AV and Bast, picking these cards that are balanced against the fact that they have 0 power because they scale so hard off of green power. This is sort of the example. She's like a combination Hitmonkey Wolfsbane. She's just awesome. This is a card that is also clutch. Sage has a very underrated ability to win important locations, and I think if you think about it for a couple seconds, you'll understand why. This is a card that gets better the more your opponent invests in a location. In other words, Sage is good at invalidating your opponent's investment. The more they're invested, the better she gets. And it's a really powerful dynamic for basically any card to have. And it's a real bit of why she's so strong. We have come to the flex slots. Cosmo is here for a few different matchups. It's the card that can prevent tech from working against you, which can be quite important. It is also, I think, maybe replaceable with Red Guardian, because what I have noticed about Cosmo is that it is This is the card I play the least because it's the hardest one to curve out. And having a bunch of threes in your hand, none of which you can play, is actually kind of awkward some of the time. Because you have Juggernaut, you have Sage, you have Cosmo. None of those really want to be played before turn 3, and if your hand, or before turn 6, and if your hand is all of them, you're just kind of looking at them and being like, what am I supposed to do during the game as opposed to on the final turn of the game? And it's very difficult to use this guy effectively unless you are using him to like explicitly protect a big Shang target or something like that, and you know that that'll be the right decision later in the game, because a lot of the value of this card is the surprise. You take priority, you Cosmo something that they really care about. That's the value of this card. And of course, making up the rear, but by no means the least important card in the deck, is Juggernaut. I think he should be fairly self-explanatory. He's been a meta staple for a while. It's not surprising that this deck is also very interested in being a Sam Wilson Juggernaut deck. Sam Wilson's ability to do minute priority games can actually matter when it comes to this card. It's not always going to matter, but it can. And priority is something Juggernaut can care about, depending on what you're playing against, and depending on, the fact that they're probably playing Juggernaut too. This is an absolute slam dunk in the deck. Get out of the way because he is coming through. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate everyone who does. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. I'm not going to re-record that. I'm leaving that beef in there. I definitely beefed that sentence, but I'm leaving it in there. If you liked that beef, like and subscribe. I really appreciate that as well. Make sure you check out the channel regularly. I did want to update y'all on my plans. I expect tomorrow to do a high voltage tier list, and then on Sunday we will have our normal standard tier list. In separating them this way, I hope to avoid the let's put high voltage on the end of the normal tier list kind of deal. So hopefully we will have Saturday high voltage tier list, Sunday normal tier list, Monday 8 cubes with a special guest host. That is the plan. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to jump into the gameplay right now. Y'all have a good one. I think there actually is, but I do wonder. Baron Mordo? Yeah, I doubt it. Adam Warlock? I really doubt that. I'm pressing, what is it? Press X to doubt? I'm pressing X to doubt. I don't know what Crime is doing. It must be fucking weird. Oh, he's copying that. Yeah, that's horrifying. About Grandmaster for extra no. I think that's a little too gimmicky. Just seems very unlikely that I'll actually be hitting things with it. Yeah, get my Havoc. Have fun with my fucking Havoc. Isn't the answer always Shang? No, not in a deck like this, I think. Oh, that is scary. Okay, so Grandmaster the Frigga to make a copy of the Fire Hair. Then they get a copy of my Hood, and they get another Valentina. If I draw what's-his-face, I think I feel okay here. If not, I don't know. It's possible I'm in a very worrying position here. Whoa, what's up, Husky? We're doing some big thinking here. They have a Victoria hand that is like 12 power. It's really fucking scary. $24 here. If they go like V hand plus something. Something. I don't know. Let's find out. The thing is, I think they might have a Killmonger. If they're playing Firehair Venom, I think they might have a Killmonger. Fuck, there's no way. We definitely lose if they're actually investing like that. That's their copy plus my thing. What? Oh my god! Yeah, yo! The Scalers, dude! The Scalers, dude! Yeah, right. That makes sense. Chalk another one up for the Jugman. Indeed. The Jugman be juggin'. Could do worse, I suppose. Again, could do worse. Kitty right? Why would I kitty right? Does it matter? I don't think it matters. Sure. They haven't used any arrows. I mean, I wouldn't arrow a fucking Lake Hellas if I were them. Interesting. I gotta say, that was beyond my expectations. We're giving them power, so my thought process was overload the right lane as best I can, make sure I don't lose to a Killmonger in the middle, and just generally go from there. Got an Arishem gamer over here. Draw 2 into Thena Kitty is a very powerful thing to be doing. There's a lot of interesting things that could be. Obviously, we don't want it to be my cast, which is a kind of goated card here. Ooh, my. Look at that extra energy they have. Ain't that scary? Looking like it could very easily be my cast, unfortunately. Either my cast or my bast, and we'll find out next turn. Well, that's good news. Indeed. No, they're leaving if I snap. Play like that. They got my back. I'll wait a turn. See if I can't get like a draw on Nico or play this at 2. Maybe a good hit on a... Oh, fuck off. That is kind of nice. Do I want to play the Nico and then go for a copied Thena? I think I do. Sea Bast. Oh god. Pretty reasonable sized sage here. What I'm afraid of is they have, like, gore or something. Yeah, that's some scary shit. What the fuck is happening? It's like a secret tribunal deck or some shit? My god. Go left. Yes? Please don't be tribunal now. Haha! It was a gore! Oh, yes! Now, if that had gone middle, we would have still won. So, we had the correct... OTA contains massive buffs to, like, every card ever, right? Surely, the next OTA is just, like... You know what? I'm gonna hold the best. It's a 1-drop. And I care about that. We get 3-4 Rhino and we'll like it. I don't know if we'll like it. Alright, so I mean, normally I wouldn't play a cast this early, but... Oh. Just get a good 6-drop, isn't it? Of course. That is quite bad. Okay, they skipped that entire turn, so they're playing an Infinite next turn or something? I need to draw a 2. That's really unfortunate. Alright, can they win through a Cosmo? I don't know. Fucking, I hope not. Hell yeah, brother. Nice. Nice, Daredevil, dog. What we could have done. Could we have... I mean, I guess we could have... If we jugged left, it would have actually won. Which is weird, because I wouldn't have thought that would be the play. I wouldn't have thought jug left would have been the play. Ugh, that's bad. You did jug left? Sorry, jug right. I wouldn't have expected it to be jug right, but what do you know? We're gonna look for, one of the things that makes the hood not terrible to play. Oh. Well, that's nice. Alrighty. I would imagine there's no way they stay against that. And, like, the whole reason we're playing this deck is we got this variant. My goat. My god queen. You like that Goliath variant? How do you mean? Oh, the banana one? Yeah. New chill one in the shop? I don't know how chill it is. I still get this if I shuffle it in, right? Like, I still get the copy here, yeah? Still happens. The only bad hit is a Havoc. But I don't feel like risking that. Agent Venom, Captain Sam, huh? Maybe if I just play Sam instead of my US agent, you mean? Might be better. Yeah, I can see that. I'll play. I feel pretty good about this. Maybe they're like a red guardianing Athena or something. Nico, a red guard. Yeah, that's fine. We kind of had that baked in a little bit. I don't like that we're giving them a jug. I like that very little, as it turns out. So Jug left. Cosmo. Kitty Pride gets shuffled in and we win? What's up? This is what we played for. Like, we gave them a Juggernaut. Oh, fuck. I'm such an asshole. I'm an asshole. Anyway, we got a pretty mid-roll, but we beat, like, if they whichever lane they Juggernaut, they win. But they also have to win the other lane, and my Juggernaut my Quantum Tunnel hits are all better than their Quantum Tunnel hits because I have played this card.